10 seconds. Oh, how long? 9 seconds, 8 seconds. We're just about to go live. So, Newman, you better unmute yourself, buddy.
Were you able to see who's looking or not? We don't even know. It could just be us.
No, there's some oaks lined up.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay, guys, well, welcome. We're live on YouTube now, and so there are pastors all over KZN tuning in. It's good to see you. And you'll know on the YouTube function, you're able to write comments, you're able to ask questions, and so we can see those. So feel free to pop a question there to Ty or Nicole. And so when you look at your screen, you see a whole lot of couples up there, a whole lot of ugly mugs with their wives. So we have Mark Newman.
Not ugly wives, bro. Not ugly wives.
And Martin Pagani, Tim Peterson, and Paula are in Namzim Todi. Paul and Lee Langton are from the South Coast. Stan and Heather Phipps are from Durban, and Steve and Jackie Wimble are from Hillcrest. So, and then the guy in the trendy blue jacket, well, that's Tyrone Daniel. So the way we're going to handle this is like a Q&A. And so Tyrone and Nicole are going to be fielding questions from various guys in KZN. So welcome. And Mark and Cindy, why don't you guys kick us off?
Yeah, cool, man. Well,
hi, everyone.
Yeah, welcome, man. Good to see you guys. And yeah, Ty and Nicole, good to see you guys, man. So we're actually going to shoot off with 2 questions because I think the one question is what everybody wants to know. So it's a simple one. How you guys doing? What's life like in Denver? And how you guys handling this whole coronavirus lockdown situation? And then for the question, which I think will be helpful. I mean, we all know Ephesians. God gives gifts to the church: apostles, prophets, teachers, evangelists. What would your advice be, Tyrone? Just to some of the guys that are operating in different giftings. And the reason I'm asking is it's almost like not to have a go at anybody, but there's a very loud prophetic voice at the moment which is trying to predict the future, come up with all the answers, and you know what I'm saying. And pastors, we standing up preaching. Our audience is bigger than what it ever has been before. What are some of the cautions or helpful things that you can maybe say to some guys that carry different giftings, just to maybe like the prophetic guys, hey, maybe look out for this. Pastors, maybe look out for this. I don't know, bro. Is there anything that you can say as a guy that we look to for leadership? Is there any caution or encouragement that you can give us regarding how the gifts operate over a time like this?
That's an easy question, Mark. Well done, bro. Excellent. Jeez. Well, I think maybe Nicole can just tell you how we're doing. I mean, she's obviously the gauge. We can see whether I'm telling the truth or not. So maybe you want to just tell the guys.
We're doing well. We're really enjoying this season now. The beginning of it I was just so stressed out. I had such a fear that just came over me completely. The first week of it, it felt like it was the end of the world and Jesus was coming back. And it was just like, it was like, okay, this is going to be a hard time. And then our oldest son got sick and we're pretty sure it just was an instant thing. I come home from the grocery store as many people were shopping and trying to get all the things, supplies, and nothing was there. You know, you guys did it too. And I get back from the store and our youngest son says, Joel's got it. He's got corona. And I was like, no, he doesn't. He doesn't have corona. So I go into his room and he's screaming in pain. He's like, my body is killing me. It's aching. And I covered my mouth and I knew that I had to be really careful. So I covered my face. And then I took his temperature and it was just like to the dangerous side. I don't know what it is for you guys, but it was like 103 almost for us, which I don't know what that is for you. But anyways, at the time, Tyrone called a few guys to start praying. And it was just such a miracle. We knew God was with us at that moment. And then at the same time, he called one of the guys who's on team, who's a doctor. And he's working with a lot of these corona patients. And he walked us through. He said, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. He prescribed the medicine because we had called the doctor here and they didn't even want anything to do with us. They were just like, sorry, there's nothing we can do, just ride it out. So it was just such a blessing to see God touch him, and he had a high fever for 3 days, and then he totally was better, but we obviously couldn't let him out of his room. So for 7 days he was stuck in his room, quarantined, and we were super, it was so sad as parents to be like, sorry, you can't come out of your room. This is where you are now. But we just saw God's hand in it, and just and then now, honestly, we can just see that this is such a precious time to be able to we haven't been able to have time like this together for so long. So it's been such a blessing to be with just to be able to talk to people, call people every day too, and see how they're doing. And it has been a blessing, but we're looking forward to it being done too.
Yeah, so I think just on that, just Nicole, obviously explaining a little just about Joel, but around that, we are well, we're good. I mean, like Nicole said, it's a strange time for all of us, but as a family, we're strong, we're healthy. Yeah. Praise God. None of us got sick from Joel, which is great. Joel's better. And yeah, we probably, I've never been home. I mean, since I planted here, we moved back to the States in 2010. I've never been home in the spring. I'm supposed to be in South Africa right now. And it was like that every year. So for the last 10 years, I've never been home in the springtime from when we moved here. So it's a different experience by many means, but we enjoy the season. Nice to be home with my family and just we're all together, which is cool. And like Nicole said, I think we've had a real connection. I mean, I hate being stuck, like everyone else, being locked down. But I think in it, honestly, Mark, for us, I'm probably more connected to the world than I have been. Not being able to get to the world, but being able to just connect with God. Probably more by the grace of God, I got our finger on the pulse just of what God's doing and what we're a part of. And so I can see some of the good in that, so which is also saving my life, not on the road all the time. But we're desperate for this thing to kind of be lifted. Just on your second question, I know there's a lot of, that's probably it's an hour answer, which I know we can't because there's a whole bunch of other guys, unless they want to give up their questions. But no, I'm just kidding. But look, I'm certainly no expert. And even for this, it's a bit weird. I mean, we love the fact to have an opportunity to chat to all of you guys. We'd love to do it one-on-one with everyone and not be watched by everyone. We'd love to talk to everyone. But we get it, we just, I guess because of our position in leading NCMI, I guess people are asking us stuff, but we're not experts. And I think we're learning from a lot of other guys and certainly learning from you guys. We're watching what everyone's putting out there and enjoying laughing at some of the stuff, everyone doing their best through the season, but also being encouraged and challenged by some of the things that you guys have been sharing around South Africa and around the world. So we're certainly not coming as this is the way forward for everyone. But certainly I heed to what you're saying, that a lot of guys are kind of getting so many different perspectives from so many different people, which again is good as we want to hear God. I think if I can back up and say when this thing broke, obviously I've been trusting God, going to God. I'm meeting with our life team once a week and talking to those guys. But I reached out to a few of our prophetic guys. And again, not to be in-house or exclusive, but just some people, because like you said, everybody's sending these prophetic words, and some are really good, and some I'm like, geez, is that even God? I'm not questioning. It just sounds incredibly weird. And if we're not understanding what we're supposed to be doing, well, I think we're in serious trouble right now because there are too many voices. And so I reached out to some of our guys and just said, hey, I'm not looking for a word from God right now. I'm just saying I want to be faithful in leading us through this, because God's clearly got some plans through this, not one day when we come out of it. And I think that's what we've got to be doing, is not just like, okay, what's God saying from everyone? What's God wanting us to learn in and through this? I don't believe God sent this. I mean, I know some of the prophets have said that. I don't believe that. But I do believe, obviously, God's allowed this. And I think for many reasons. And the church, I think today, I've never met a pastor in my whole life who doesn't believe, who never said, they always would say, it's not about the main gathering. It's never been about the Sunday meeting. And now we've all globally at the same time not allowed to have one. And you realize it's only been about the main meeting. And that's not a bad thing if we can keep it in context. And so I think we've been allowed, God's given us a moment to strengthen some of the other muscles in the church so we can be more effective in it. So we've all been stuck in doing this and finding our ways forward. But here's the thing, Mark. I think I've watched and I've listened, and everyone's quoting that Joshua 3, never been this way before. And that's true. But the one thing I want to remind us is, although we've never been this way before, we know where we're going. We know what we're called to do. And I think that's where guys are throwing their hands in the air, too many leaders, and saying, well, we've never been this way. We don't know what we're supposed to be doing. And I want to say, no, don't confuse the two. We know what we're called to. God hasn't changed the mandate and the mission. I think some of the ways have been changed and will be changed, and maybe they'll be changed for eternity to help us be more effective as we go forward. So the ways are being changed, but certainly not the what. And if the what's been changed, then what we were doing before this was not from God. And so I do want to just kind of keep highlighting to the guys, stay the course in this season, and be careful what voices you're listening to. Is my time up, Grant? Is that why I'm looking at you, or can I carry on? Or what we done? It was because Mark took so long asking the question. Anyway, that's fine. But I mean, if I could just give a quick, unless we go to the next question, but I do feel like just to quickly answer, Mark, there are some dangers, I think, in this season. You know, our president, and I'm sure other presidents have been calling this coronavirus the unseen enemy. We're in a battle against the unseen enemy, and I think there's some real danger in catching this disease. Absolutely, this virus, as Nicole said, our son had it, and it's hectic. But in saying that, there's an unseen enemy. There's some other dangers, I think, in governing local churches right now that is probably unseen. But if we're not aware of them, I think we're going to, some of us maybe will end up in trouble if we don't stick to what God's called us to. And so the governance, in my humble opinion, is always the key to anything. But it's probably one of the major things we need to be aware of, how we're governing God's people through all our giftings and the prophetic voices and the apostolic voice, all that we be very careful what we are doing away with in the season because everyone else is doing it, or what we're giving ourselves to because everyone else is doing it. Because at the end of the day, we've got to be doing what God's called us to do. And that comes from us hearing God. So we need to be open and teachable. We need to be listening, but we better stick to what God's called us to. And I think, honestly, just in my talking to a lot of the pastors all over the world, a lot of guys are just emulating what everyone else is doing. And it's because we've never been this way. We don't understand it, so we're just embracing it on. And I just think there's a danger to that. And that's one of the unseen enemies that's going to hinder us in our future, because when we come out of this, what we've emphasized, what we've focused on, what we've got rid of, it's going to be a hard way back if we haven't stuck to what it is God's called us to. So I think just be wise, hear God. I mean, it's that simple. Hear God and do exactly what He's told us to do. And if He's told us to change things, we'll change them. Anyway, so just be careful. I think elders need to govern their local churches, hear God together. There are enemies, and don't lead now with now in focus. Lead now with the future in focus, because I think the present is going to hinder the future if we're doing things for the present, not thinking about what it looks like into the future. Anyway, there's a whole lot more than that, but we be aware there are some dangers. I'm putting a message together on the dangers, the unseen dangers, and one is the present, one is being pragmatic, which again I think is part of what I've said there. I think being passive in the season too, just again, before we go to the next question, Cross, I can see you want to go. Just one, I'm sorry, guys. Mark, you get Mark to ask me this question. That's the problem. It's the whole hour. Here we go.
Newman, your fault.
Yeah, it is Newman. Your fault for asking him first. Let me just, if I can say this, just because I think a lot of guys, and again, I get it, but we're waiting to come out of this to carry on with what God's called us to. And again, we will come out of this. I believe this. I don't know if it will ever be like it was, but we're definitely going to come out of this. The lockdown will lift in all countries eventually, and whatever that looks like. But if we're waiting, I think we're missing the time and the moment. And here's the prophetic things that's happened that have come when I've reached out to our guys is we say chaos, God says convergence. That seems to be what's been coming through. We say chaos, God says convergence. And God's wanting to bring things together. And if you think about the majority of guys who I've chatted to in our ranks globally, things were really happening when we went into lockdown. So there were birthings. And I feel like this isn't a season in lockdown to get pregnant. And I'm not even talking physically, I'm talking spiritually. I feel like we went into the season pregnant, down into lockdown pregnant, and there's birthing happening in the lockdown, not when we come out of the lockdown. And we've got to think that through rather than just wait till we get out and then kind of get on with the mandate God's given. So anyway, there's a whole lot more around that. But thanks for your question, Mark. And
thanks, Ty. I can't find my thumbs up button, but super helpful. Thanks, man.
Great. Be careful. Stay the course.
Steve had his hand up there.
Steve did.
Good. How's it, Tyrone? Hey, Nicole. Good to see you guys.
Guys.
Quick question related, Tyrone. You're speaking to a lot of different pastors doing a whole lot of things. What are some of the methods that you're seeing working well from different guys? I know every church has got a slightly different thumbprint, but some of the things that you're seeing that you're thinking, hey, that's having good impact and could be continued even post-lockdown for us.
Well, I think, again, I'm just good seeing you guys and enjoying even your posts every day about the whole Philippians text and getting some good rev there, so well done. Look, I think time will tell how effective we've been, to be honest. We're not going to know, I think, for weeks, months, to see how effective things have been. But I have loved, I guess, the emphasis on the lost and how many people are getting saved globally right now because they're watching our everybody's kind of Sunday meetings or gatherings or putting up their stream or live stream or whatever you guys are doing. So I think what I've really enjoyed and hearing about the response of people getting saved. Now, everybody's saying that more people are listening to the messages than ever before globally. I think more people have access. We hear about people getting saved. So I think that's very exciting for me, Steve. Can I just suggest on the downside, I'm not sure what's happening to the people who are getting saved. And that's probably, we need to be questioning some of that, in a sense. Is there a response? It's wonderful to have a hand go up or a decision, but we know it's about discipling these guys. And I'm not sure if guys have a way of being able to do that. If we haven't, we need to fix that because, in my opinion, if we're going to carry on with this into the future, we're going to have a way of discipling people. I think that's probably been, for me, one of the challenges, not just the guys getting saved, but our people. I think a lot of guys, again, are just, is my time up? Or is that why we're with Cross? Or are we? Okay. Sorry, Steve. Just again on this, I think I've challenged some of the guys, even some of you guys, just to say, a lot of guys are having their Sunday meeting, whatever their gathering is, and recording, which I think is really cool. Someone going live, and that's also very brave, but good too. That's great. Other guys are, and then also they're generally having prayer meetings, which is really good to see guys praying through the situation on Zoom and that. But then other guys would tell me, and they're having kind of leaders meetings, which on a weekly basis, or staff meetings or whatever it be. And I think that's awesome. But if that's all we're doing, honestly, I think what we're doing is we're maintaining what we got. We're not really going forward. And so my suggestion, and I've seen some guys do that, and that's, I guess, to answer your question, Steve, what I've seen guys really do well, they're actually using the Zoom to disciple people, to not just preach and teach like a video, but actually gather many guys together and spend some time on a daily basis with potential elders or future deacons or future church planters. Or I think if we utilize these times now, and I've seen some guys doing that, I'm trying to do that. We're trying to do team training in and through this as well, so we don't come out of this then look to train guys. We want to be training them now and finding ways. So I think those are some of the things we can keep and do really well. And if we can keep being effective in that, but certainly I'm watching and we're learning ourselves. I mean, even this forum, I think can be helpful, even connecting with the team in different regions. I want to carry that on when we're done with this, even when I get to be on the road, because it's a great way of connecting on a monthly basis with every person around the world, certainly in our team, which, to be honest, if we didn't go through this, probably wouldn't have been something I even looked at, just because I don't dig this, to be honest. I'd rather be connected to people. But I actually see there's some good in all of this. So I don't know if I've answered your question. The guys are doing some great things, and we're learning. I mean, the scary thing is that everybody's become a tele-evangelist right now. And I hope we don't have the characters of those guys. We're sticking to the plan. Anyway, that's, sorry, a bad joke. But I am seeing guys. And also, it's also finding your ways with your church. Some are kind of doing something every day. And again, if that's what's needed for your church, that's cool. I guess the danger, though, is that we don't become people pleasers, because when we come out of this, you're not going to be able to do that all the time. And I think we've got to be careful what we're implementing every day, every week, because, as I said, the danger is, I know we're doing our best to keep our people engaged, and we're trying to keep our people involved with our church. But when you come out of this, friends, if we've pleased people through this, we're going to have to keep pleasing people out of this. And I don't think we can do that. So my point being is presenting vision, staying the course, reaching out where you can, but don't overfeed or spoon feed everybody all the time, because the expectation will be, I want that all the time. And I don't think we're called to lead that way. So again, I know that I can't qualify that because of time. Just I'm throwing some thoughts out there, challenges, and saying what we do now is going to, in a sense, set the course for how we come out of this. So do what you can, stay connected. I think be quite strategic in how we go about it. Chat with your leaders, elders, pray, ask God, but strategize forward, because let's not please people, because we'll lose them when we stop pleasing them when we come out of this. Don't make it too comfortable for your people at home too. I mean, you know, guys are putting pictures up, lying in bed, watching TV, loving the season. I'm like, hey, hang on. We're coming out of this. Good luck getting people back to buildings one day. Anyway, that's the next challenge.
Tim Peterson, you got a question there, buddy?
Yeah, I do. Time Call, it's good to see you guys. We've been thinking about, you lead a team that is across the whole world. What are some of the don'ts, some of the things you think we should be avoiding, or some of the pitfalls that we could, you know, avoid during this time? Traps, maybe.
Yeah, well, traps, again, that's what I kind of started with. So let me go there now that you've asked that question. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Tim. Let me just throw some of these dangerous traps. And again, I'm not the expert in this. It's just by observation, obviously by prayer and crying out to God, because the way I lead this team, in a sense, while it's not a local church, I'm not speaking to you guys to do this. I'm trying to live this out myself. And I think, as I said earlier, governance, leadership is always key, but it's probably most strategic right now, just in the way we go about it. It's a major issue, I think, for the future of the church. And my understanding is the majority of guys who are listening in are elders. So that's why we're talking about governance. Again, let me highlight the one. I think one of the big ones is the context of the danger is that we're thinking too much about the present and not the ramifications for the future. We're not leading with the future in mind. I'm not saying that everyone's not, just you saying what are some of the dangers, the pitfalls. I think we're not leading with the future. We talk about being a prophetic people, and that doesn't mean that everyone prophesies, but it does mean that we see, prepare, and become the future. And that's not just a slogan. That's got to be a reality. I think even in leading right now through this. So in saying that, excuse me, don't let the upkeep. My thing is this. Don't let the upkeep of the church in this season distract us from advancing the kingdom of God. Good. I think we are having to be so busy to keep the church moving and going that some of us perhaps are so church focused right now, we forgot there's a kingdom to advance through. So again, it's not an either or, but I think we default right now to leading the church, keeping the church going. Upkeep of the church is distracting us perhaps from the mission we've actually been called to. And that's why I think we can't allow the present to determine the future. We've got to see, prepare, and become. Build into people, disciple through the season. Raise people up. I mean, I've seen guys even doing ordinations and trying to work their way through, excuse me, team guys laying hands. We're not laying hands on through the screens. Please hear that. But we can get on with some guys ordaining people if they can do it with having a team guy in their house with video. I love that. Again, not to replace what we call to, but it's getting on with the task, not waiting to come out of this. And so I think those are some of the things. Another thing is a pragmatic approach. And to be honest, Tim, I think a lot of us struggle with that, including me. Like, what are you guys doing? Okay, let's do it. Rather than actually what has God said? You know, we cannot approach the future pragmatically. As I've said before, if we live with borrowed truth, then I think we're leading from observation. And that causes us to approach the future pragmatically. So we've got to remember the divine nature of what we're called to. This is a God thing. And in doing that, if we lose that, our strategy comes out of human observation rather than that revelation, as I said. Psalm 32, verse 8, to state the obvious, but it's been a great text I've been able to just share with other guys. And it says that God says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go, and I'll counsel you and watch over you. And I love that. That promise is God is able, God is willing, God is wanting to instruct us in it. But I also love the divine guidance of God is that it's I. God says, I will. So don't go to all the podcasts and everyone else. Don't say don't learn from them, but go to God. God is it's an individual guidance. I love also that word, I will instruct you. It's an individual guidance. The word you, it's a practical guidance. And so I think we should do whatever God tells us to do. And so again, just being careful that we're not just pragmatically approaching things right now, trying this, doing that, getting rid of that, because there will be ramifications for the next season, I think. Also being passive, which is hard to believe. People can be passive in a season like this. But I think the longer we're in it, the more we begin to embrace, well, this is it. Yeah. I think the first week, everybody praying, fasting, calling out, trusting, doing, reaching out. And then we kind of got into this rhythm. And I think we can become passive, you know. It's a danger. It's an unseen enemy. And I think we can be back-footed right now, waiting to come out of this. And as I said earlier, the things that have been birthed in this season that we need to be bringing out and bringing through. And I've often said also, if the devil can't discourage us with hardship, then he'll try to distract us with ease. So hardship first, then ease, and we can get. Are we done? Is my hour up? I'm in my. Okay, well, thanks, Tim. That's the end of that. It'd be great hanging out with you, bro.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Paula, have you got a question there?
How's it, Ty?
Hi.
Hey, Paul. Hey, guys. How you doing, man?
Good, thanks.
I'm enjoying
One
your
of the
views.
One of the things that I've been thinking about is this young generation have grown up connecting online. And there's a lot of content out for adults and kids ministry. Do you have any thoughts around the teenagers, the young generation, and some of the ways that guys are, and just some thoughts around how we can disciple them, how we can lead them and engage with them? We're just finding that if you just engage a little bit with them, they're used to the online thing. Any thoughts around the youth? Yeah,
look, I think that people don't like me saying this, but I think we have to focus on the youth. That's one of the key things. Not that the youth are our focus. We want to be all generational, but they're the now and the future church, and we have to be involved in connecting with them. This internet thing, I was listening to my dad speaking and some of that stuff he did with the Aussie guys, and he just said something to the effect of, Jesus knew about the internet, and he's not against the internet. He knew before it ever came, if we don't believe that. And I thought, there's some truth. But he said, but he still had to leave heaven to come to earth. He couldn't do it through the internet. I thought, that's good to be reminded. So I want to say it can't replace. If this replaces us being together, I think about Paul writing, and it's probably become one of my yearnings even more. And I'm not Paul by any means, but he says, I long to be with you, Romans chapter 1, that I can impart to you and make up what's lacking in your faith. But I love that we may be mutually encouraged. There's something that happens being together, and I think we can never replace it. The danger is this is the new way, and we don't need to get together. I don't think that can ever happen. But in saying that, the good of what's come out of this, Paul, I think, is it's forced us to see this can be used, and it can be used effectively. And all the young guys who've been saying this stuff, we're not all wrong, and they're not all devil worshippers, can I say, because they use the internet. Forgive me, that's a bad statement, I know. But it's not of the devil. I think we can lose our way if this becomes the thing. But I think we're going to have to engage a lot more, and I love that. And I think that's why the way to engage is to get them engaged with us, and also to hear from them, and to actually help us get to that place where we can minister from this platform with them, and they can minister to us. And it can be an add-on, not to take the place of, but can be an add-on. So the best way is not to go to all the techie guys, is to get to this generation who's already got this, born into this, who knows this, and get them to help us to set things up better. And also for them to understand the need to gather still. I think there's this danger, as I said, they're going to do their thing, we do ours. Now we can do it together, and we're willing to go where they are, but they also got to understand you can't forsake the gathering of the brethren. There's accountability. This whole Corona thing has forced isolation. And you have to stay home. You're not allowed to have, in our country still, they're saying they're lifting the ban, but still only allowed to have 10 people. Who knows? But the gospel is not an isolated thing, and I think we cannot forsake. Everything's forcing us to go this way, but we're going to have to contend to make sure we're still connecting outside of this. But it's definitely, I think we can be way more effective. Paul, just another good for me is that I don't like sharing stuff on this stuff. I don't like preaching into video cameras. You know that. I think you know that, even though I've been doing it every week now. But I'm forced to do it, and that's not a bad thing, because what I've realized is a lot of our stuff is not exclusive, because we're not exclusive, but it's very in-house. I spend most time with the pastors and leaders, and then obviously with the team that I lead, and so I'm usually sharing into those forums. But I've now been forced to kind of record them, video that stuff, and put it out. And it's been amazing just to see how many guys have reached out from outside of NCMI, just saying, gee, we love what you guys are about. Would love to connect. Would love to try and build something together. And I think that's the default of the season, is that we've been forced to put our stuff out there. It does make you want to be careful what you're saying when you're in, because you're not in-house as much. not that we have to guard our words, but be careful because people can misunderstand everything and don't have the heart behind it. But I think the good is that we're actually getting stuff out there that people are able, and we're getting other people's stuff that we probably wouldn't have connected before. And so I think that's helpful with the youth as well, And I think the youth are ready. They're keen. I mean, our kids are wanting to run with the other youth around the world, and this is a way of doing it. They can connect regularly. They want to start this once a week thing with the leaders around the world, youth guys, where they can activate without us, get things going, and that excites me to no end. So don't do away with the meeting, but geez, this is forcing us to realize this thing's a good thing. It can be, but it can't replace what we're about.
What about one or two of the ladies? Have you got a question for?
Yeah. Come on. Come on, Susan. Okay, Jack.
I've got a question for Nicole. I know you're an unusually lovely person, but
yes,
you're also in a house with 4 men and 3 teenage sons, and I think all of us are living in close quarters at the moment. But my question is, what do you do when you lose your joy? Where do you go? And do your kids ever accuse you of being grumpy? And if that's the case, what do you do to get your joy back?
That is a good question. No, that's been very relevant in this time, because I think you have your good days and then all of a sudden you have another day and you're like, what happened to me? I was doing so well. So I obviously start my day with spending time with the Lord, and it's so wonderful right now because it's so easy to our kids are a little bit older, so they're doing school and it's all online now, but it's just like you're able to get that time with God and get refreshed and read his word and go deep with him, and just to be with him. And I think the thing is with our kids too, that you just realize that they're so forgiving. So when you have a day that you're kind of a little bit grumpy, you just say, I'm sorry, like I am a little bit grumpy. I need to. And we've realized too that you can't do everything all together all the time. Like we're allowed to go for walks and you guys aren't. And I'm so sorry that you can't go for walks. My heart breaks to think that you can't go outside your house.
They can go around the
Yeah, well, you can go in your garden if you have a garden. But so we're able to go for a walk, and we choose to not take the boys all the time because sometimes you just need to get away from them. So and we love them so much. It's been such a precious time. We've had worship times together. We have we listen to our church, to the church that we're involved in here. We do listen to the word. I mean, we listen to their Sunday meeting, but we also have a time. Tyron asks each kid to preach a different Sunday. So, and then Josh, one of our sons, does worship. So we're able to have this beautiful worship time together, and one of them preaching and just other prayer times together. So it's been a great time. We've enjoyed it. But obviously you have your good and your bad days, and it's normal because we're human and we just have to keep going to God and asking him to help us.
It's not that hard being married to me either, Jackie, just so you know. So I think I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
I don't believe you, Tyron.
You know, my wife is, but yeah, it's been good. She's been amazing. I think it's us who haven't been good, the boys, and but Nicole's been amazing.
No, I think it's easy with boys. They're easy.
Anyway.
Cool. Is there another lady with a question then? What about Lee Langton? Have you got a question there, Lee?
I muted her.
Yeah, mute her. Mute
Yeah,
her.
Stanley, take the floor there, bud.
How's it, Ty? How's it, Nicole? How you guys? Are you well? You're looking well.
Hi, guys.
Good
No,
to
we're
see
great.
you
Thank you,
guys.
Stan. Did you just chime in now? You just decided to join us, have you?
No, I'm here. I've been watching the whole time.
The whole time.
Okay.
Just keeping quiet.
Okay, very quiet. Okay, cool.
My question is this. I mean, everybody's on about, hey, everything's changed and and all the rest of it. But actually, the reality is there's a whole lot of stuff that hasn't changed because that's not up for change. You know, what would you say are the things that haven't changed as we come out of this?
Yeah, well, I hate to sound too super spiritual, but the unchanging nature of Jesus Christ, Hebrews 13, verse 8, that was the first go-to for me when this thing began to break, you know, and that Jesus Christ is unchanging. I preached the whole thing out there. He's unchanging in his personality, he's unchanging in his position, which I think matters most. So that's not up for grabs. People can try and highlight the downside, but Jesus Christ has done it all. Hebrews chapter 1 tells us that. Again, so for me, the unchanging nature of Christ, the immutability of Christ is probably the doctrine that's always needed, but most needed now when a lot is changing. And so in saying that, Stan, I think it's linked to so many things. If he doesn't change in who he is, and I love that doctrine, because if he can change, then he ceases to be perfect. It shows imperfection. That's why we're all changing in and through these things. And so his unchanging nature for me is in his position, and I want to say in his purpose. He hasn't changed his purpose, his plan. And so for us, what's not up for grabs is, in my opinion, is the revelation of who Christ is. It's the mattering most, which I've been constantly sharing, because I think how we see Christ, where we see him, determines how we see ourselves, but also determines how we lead and govern God's people and what we call them to. And so I think the purpose, the mandate of the Great Commission will never change, has never changed. It's probably more alive right now than ever before. And I know that we're feeling really constricted and restricted, all of us. How do we do this thing globally? But people are listening. We've got doors open to us right now, honestly, that have come out of this time. In Japan, we've got guys now all of a sudden, and if you guys are working into Japan, please let me know, because we got some great connections there who really want to partner with us now, which is awesome. Right through the US, we've got guys reaching out to us in this country, around Asia, right now. Again, so I can get into all those great doors, but the point being is we're leading through this with the vision and future God has, and the Great Commission hasn't changed. Making disciples, followers of Jesus, locally and globally, hasn't changed. I've talked to this team, as you know, and our mission hasn't changed. Our call is to strengthen and encourage the church, which we see in Ephesians 4, but also to be equipping the saints for works of service, but ultimately that we can grow up. And I think that hasn't changed. The way we lead God's people, maybe the ways, but not what we call them, what they've been called to. Eldership governed churches don't change. There's a lot not up for grabs. I think the ways are up for change, but not the what. And as I said in the beginning of this time, if the what's up for change, then probably what we're doing is not what God's called us to do before this. And that would be a tragedy and maybe a good lesson in this. But as I've gone to God, it's that whole thing, do whatever he tells you to do, stick to the plan. One of the prophetic words, Stan, that came through again, I'm not an anti-Noah guy. I'm not a big Noah fan. I mean, I love what he did. Please hear me. But what I'm saying is in my 24 years, I think, of ministry, I've probably preached on Noah 4 or 5 times. And the reason I'm saying that, it's not my go-to guy or go-to scripture, but God's really spoken to us through the prophetic people, but also through just some of the stuff we've been walking through about this thing of Noah. And God's really spoken about NCMI being a kind of an ark. We're building this ark. And I've been preaching around favor. So you've heard that even in the season. And it says that Noah found favor in the eyes of God, not because it's not that we've earned it, but we have sensed there is a favor, always has been, by the grace of God, the 40 years we've had and beyond. And we do believe there's more favor, not because we earn it. It's just the approval of God, the authority of God. But what's interesting is that Noah stuck to the plan, and he built according to the pattern, which we all know. And he got mocked for it. People were telling him, change it. And again, you all know in leadership, everyone's telling us to change everything all the time. It's just come at a real time for us to say, stick to the plan. NCMI is not the only thing. And I know there's other guys probably watching who are not part of us. We're not exclusive. We don't believe we have it all. Please hear us. We want to learn. We'd love to connect with other guys. We're learning. And I think this is bringing us together with other groups as well. But we also know what God's called us to do. And we want to stick to the scriptures as the blueprint, regardless of how irrelevant most people might think it is, especially in a season like now. And so what hasn't changed is the pattern, the blueprints, and the way God has spoken, and how for 40-something years and through history, this thing has stayed the course. So we want to make sure, probably like never before, that we're not dogged in this, but we're leading out of conviction, and we're knowing that what we do has the scriptural backing rather than we read it in a manual, even Dudley's manual or my books, whatever. This is the biblical pattern. So I think what hasn't changed is what this blueprint, and it's probably becoming more and more. And some of the outside prophetic voices have said there's a blueprint God's wanting to reveal. I'm sure some of you heard, not in our ranks, just some of the American prophets have been saying it. Guys have been sending me stuff about blueprint and about Noah. So I don't want to say, don't go preach on Noah every week now. He's not our mission. Jesus is. Preach Christ and the King and the kingdom. But there is something about this thing of staying the course. And there's some things that are not up for grabs, and it's this blueprint. Build according to the pattern. The flood's coming, and it's not a fearful flood, I think, what's been said. It's more the flood of God for us to actually go forward. It's a shifting into another season, but it's going to be faithful people who've stuck to the plan and purposes of God. So that's not restrictive. That I believe gives us some banks, but out of that we have the freedom to just open our hands, and diversity is key to the season of all gifts flowing in the way God's called you. You guys leading your local churches the way God's called you to lead them, not us telling you how. But there are some things biblically that we're all contending for that should never change. So careful that we don't change the what in the hows, getting them mixed up. I think that would be probably a danger through it all. So hopefully that helps, Stan. Sorry, it's a long answer, but I didn't want to give a question.
Before we give them a second round here, let's just slide in some questions that have come from pastors around the province.
Right.
Some guys are wanting to know, is there an announcement about World Equip? And the second thing is, very glad to hear you talking about Japan. And is church planting, can you see church planting changing in the years up ahead now with our new reality?
Great. Okay, so just quickly on the global equip, we are obviously processing and praying this through. We're going to make an announcement on Monday. We just try to hold in there and just give God as much time as he maybe I want him to have to make this thing happen. But we will make the announcement. We have processed this through with many guys, and I mean, to be honest, the reality of us being able to do it is not looking like a reality. Just given all the uncertainties, not of the mandate, but of how we can gather as a global guys traveling, the uncertainties of even your country being able to allow us to have 8,000 people together, flight. People have obviously lost their jobs through this time and not able to, when they recover, are they going to have jobs? Are they going to have money? Are they going to have time off? And so again, right now, please don't hold me to this, because God could change in the next few days, and I'm hoping he will. But it's looking more and more likely just by our response, our asking, our praying, and chatting with guys, just saying, what's the reality? It's highly unlikely we're going to be able to have it. So what we'll have to do is obviously postpone it, and we'll just push it out for 12 months. So we've got that backup. I don't want to give you too much, but now I've kind of announced, but don't hold me to it because it could change. So we will probably, the plan B is we've got this backup. We'll push it out to October next year. And we've got the facility sorted if we do need to do that. The guys are happy. Rayma's happy for us. We'll move everything just 12 months out, which will then require us to be obviously way more effective in how we go about doing things over this year and next year, in the beginning of next year in our regions. And that'll have to be worked through the guys. But we're still excited for it. As I said, it could change, and we're still going for it. But it's looking more and more like a non-reality. The decision's taken out of our hands, really. So yeah, long answer, but I'm devastated because for me, this would have been phenomenal. But a year later makes it even more attractive because people are going to be more desperate to hang. Yeah. And so again, I'll keep you posted. As I said, announcement will come out next week on what we've decided, but it's looking more and more like that. Just to keep you in the loop, and I'm sure it makes sense. It's not a surprise for you guys, especially all of you in lockdown. And just again, would hate it if it was a regional thing, it'd be a lot easier. But it's a global thing, and every country's different. People are obviously fearful and also unable to travel. So why push something that can't happen? We'll just put it out. And flexibility, eh? We all talk about being flexible to our people. Well, here we go. We need to all be flexible in this all. So that's the one thing. But we still feel like it's vital and needed. It's going to be a phenomenal time. And we might need you guys to step up and bring a lot more of your people because I'm not sure how many global guys will be able to get there, but we're hoping they will. We've got 5,000 already registered, and we're going to just move them across automatically, and they won't have to obviously pay again. Or anyway, the admin guys will be working that out. The other question, Grant, sorry, was church planting. Church planting, yeah. So, I mean, guys, the reality is church planting should never end. I mean, if we're global, if we believe in the Great Commission, if we're King and Kingdom focused, then the mandate has not changed. So church planting is absolutely still necessary, still needed. I personally think we're going to come out of this, of course. I don't know if we'll be able to do everything we were able to do in the numbers and the gatherings and that, but that shouldn't hinder anything. So yeah, church planting, we're wanting to do that. Some of our countries already have got church planters training going and have it even in this format and forum, just so we can continue to, present the vision and raise up guys. So by all means, we're going to have to find new ways. And to be honest, guys, the good thing is I don't have to find the ways for every country or region. That's what I got a team for and people on the ground who have to find out how God goes about it. But church planting is absolutely essential. I personally think we should be planting churches out of this season. For instance, our guys who've just moved, as many of you know, James and Jess have just moved to, a few months back to New York to go and plant a church. And I mean, they've obviously, it's a different world, as many of you know, and they've relocated with their hundreds of kids. No, there's 5 kids I think they do have. And they're living in a small apartment, and then he got a job, and then this thing hit, and he was a waiter, and then so they all closed down. So I mean, it's been a huge challenge for them. They've been stuck in this apartment, no garden, not allowed to be out. As you know, New York's been hit the worst. But it's been interesting in our communication and him talking with us, saying this is the time to plant, he feels, because, New York is more open now than ever before. If he had just arrived there and said, we're going to plant another church, people are like, whatever. Now he's got all his neighbors, all these people beginning to say, man, so there's an openness to the gospel maybe we haven't had before. And to be honest, to just preach the good news is awesome, but we should be planting local churches, I think, more and more in a season like this. Maybe that's some of the birthing. We seriously need to be planting. There's never been a time, I think, certainly while I've been leading this team, where there's been an opportunity like now where people are open and ready. What a time to preach the gospel and plant some local churches. So I hope it is in your heart. We're going to have to find ways and honor the government and the system in one sense, but we're never going to pause this. And I don't believe it's on pause. I believe we've been given the green light. Go for it. Stick to the plan. This gospel's going forward, and we need gospel communities birthed everywhere. All over South Africa, even the guys in Africa I've been chatting to in Zim, and that they're serious about planting churches still. They're getting on with the task. I mean, again, this is new for us, but for them, they're like, hey, we know what it's like to not eat. Like, and I'm like, sheesh, I'm humbled in chatting with them. But yeah, let's plant churches all over South Africa and from South Africa. And I know that your rand is hectic right now. I'm well aware of that, and who knows what it's going to look like. But the prophetic words have come is that in these moments, God wants to bring some release and resources, and entrepreneurs are going to rise up. And I'd hate it just to be people who get money and influence without using it for the kingdom and for church planting. So I think it's all kind of connected together. So long answer, but yes, plant churches. We can help if we can set up, talk to the team guys on the ground there. We can do some recording. We can do some of this stuff. We can Zoom. We can do whatever. But I do think we'll come out of this, and I know we'll come out of this, and let's have some church planters ready to plant. Think like that in your agenda. All right.
Great. So before the blokes jump in again, ladies, any other lady got a quick question before we swing around?
I'll say something.
Hello.
Come on, Susan.
Hello, how are you?
I don't know if you have the same problem as me as hearing God when you're stuck with your husband in the same house. More than, I hear him more often than God sometimes. But I just want to know, in your quiet times and just when you've been thinking and praying and that, is there anything God's been saying to you that will be encouragement to the rest of us?
Yeah. Well, I have been saying that it feels like everything that I read in the Bible comes alive. It's like when you go through crisis, to me, it just like comes alive. Like, it's like those times when, when we've like left nations and stuff, you feel like you can hear God at such a different level because you're stepping out of the boat and you need him more than ever. So for me, I feel like everything I'm reading is just like becoming like I'm eating it alive. So one of the things that stood out to me was just like that my focus needs to be upon reading his word and eating his word. And I think so much of what I was involved in is, you become a mom and a wife, and you're so focused on other things, taking care of everyone, like we still have to do, but taking care of, what are we cooking, all these things. And you just think, actually, I just want to get back to what God wants. And obviously all of those things are important, and all of those things are going to carry on. Life is going to be normal again. But it's like just to make sure that I'm going deep with God every single day and relying on him every single day, because I can't just need him right now when we're in crisis and not need him when we're not in crisis. So just to make sure that just every single day that I'm relying upon him and just letting him feed me and feed my soul. And so.
Great.
Yeah. See, I'm just going to honor my wife for a moment. The stuff God's revealing to her is incredible for me. Honestly, she tells me stuff not to teach. We just go talk and walk. And she's like, I read this and I read, God said this. I'm like, geez, you should be preaching here, man. Tell me what he said. So I think, again, it's wonderful just to see, just all of us trying to press into God and just sharing the stuff together encourages us, which is really cool to see. So, just want to honor Nicole in that, honestly. I've seen God. I know she hates that and doesn't want to talk about it. But I'll tell you, I've seen a change even in these 5 weeks of just God giving us stuff that is for us, not just for her. And she'll never say that, but I'm loving it. It's feeding me, which is great. So
great. Good.
Tyrone, I've got another question for you.
Oh, another easy one, Stan. Another one.
Easy one. They're all easy ones for you, man. But remind us again of some of the things that God spoke to you at the beginning of the year before this thing hit. Because I've kind of been going through this process. Actually, what God said hasn't changed. And what are some of those things? Because
so what you say, the stuff that I've shared I didn't say enough, and you want me to say something else. So no, I'm just joking. I'm kidding. So I appreciate it. Interesting in the beginning of this year is God really spoke to me about a season of release, which I've shared with many of you guys already, and I put it out there. And every time I go to God, even now, even through this, I'm reminded that God said that to me. It's like God said, I didn't tell you what it looks like. So I wish I could say I knew this was coming like it did. I mean, I'm leading and I'm sure things come our way, but I can't tell you the release was this Corona thing. I don't believe it's from God, and I don't believe that's the release of God. I do believe that it's not even this year. It's a season of release. There was something about 2020, and again, not stuck on numbers. You know me. I'm not a numbers. Some of you guys are really good at all that. I'm not. All I want to say is this is a season of release, and as I go to God, I feel like God's saying it's still that season of release, and the release is the open-handedness of God. God opening his hand. And the challenge was that he opened his hand, that we need to have our hands open and not hold on to what he's given and has for us. And so, again, that's some of the stuff at the beginning of this year, which, again, I've kind of put it into a preach, and even the things I feel, but I don't feel like they're exclusive. I feel like God's saying to all of us. The other thing I felt, and Stan, this is a dangerous thing to say, but I felt it's not going to be what we want, because I think a lot of guys, release is coming and we're going to have the breakthrough that we want. I was so aware the soberness of this promise from God was it's going to be for those who are serious about doing what he said and serious enough to stick to what he's called us to do. And I don't think there's anyone who would claim they're not. But if you look at what you're building, then you can see whether you are or not. And it's not that everyone's going to get their hookup. It's going to be a release of those who are serious about being focused on what he's called us to do it the way he wants us to do it. And I almost felt like if we're doing this in the flesh is not going to contain what God wants to release. It's going to be an open-handedness for him to trust us, to release over us, not for us, but through us for the mandate God's given. And so, I had a picture that I had a picture of of people, and I didn't see the people, and I don't know who the people are, and this isn't a fearful thing, but I just saw pastors just in a sense treading water in a pool, and I felt like they're going to go under if they're doing this in their flesh. You've got to work hard. It's not to say God's got this and we just watch. It's we work with him. But if we're doing this in the flesh, I don't know. I don't want to strike fear. We're going to go under. We're not going to get the hookup to come out of this if we're doing our thing in the flesh for our glory. And I know that's a hectic statement, but I want to say that because most guys here release means we're going to get everything we want. That's not it. I don't believe I'm going to get what I want. It's what God wants and what we do with what God wants. And so I do want to say it's still a season of release. I've had my sons say, hey, Dad, if things are changing and even if we have to move the global equip and all that, then 2020 is going to be our year. And I'm like, hang on. 2021 is going to be our year. I'm like, no, well, 2020 is still a year God wants to use. There's a whole lot he is doing, even in this Corona deal. And so don't put 2020 off and say, okay, 2021. God's saying this season. Yeah. And maybe it's not, what a time for God to do stuff. You know? And I think breakthroughs, again, guys, without trying to hype the financial thing, I think some of the strategic breakthroughs are coming for people who are doing things that he called them to do. And we're going to have breakthrough in downtime in an economy that can't carry. What a time for God to say, nah, I'll do it. But it's not those who are seeking promotion. It's those who are seeking the face of God and using what they've got. And we've said, God, entrust trillions. And some of the prophetic words have come. We need to move from billions to trillions in our talking. And again, I'm not about money, but it's that God would give us so we can keep giving with our hands out. So, yeah, I think that's still that. I mean, it's hard to see release in a season like this when we're all in lockdown. But God says it's a season of release. So stick to that plan, you know, and continue building according with. We look at the world, but not through the worldly view, from God's view. Yeah. And not even looking to God from our view. Look to the world through God's view is what I think we've got to be doing. So I'm trying to live in that daily. And even in the realities of not having income and all this stuff, we're all facing similarly. God's still a God who is in control of all. And what a time for God to do his thing. Then people can't look and say, good strategy, good leadership, you guys did this. No, it has to be God. And that's what God wants, and that's what we want. So continue, yeah. Let's trust for a season of breakthrough, favor, and all the things we ask, we put out. I put it out to you guys saying, hey, we often pray, and we do. We pray for you guys daily. I pray for the churches around the world. But God challenged me to get the churches to be praying for NCMI. And that list we put out of, I think, 9 or 10 Fs of please be praying for this. And that hasn't been put on pause while we pray against Corona. We should be praying through this thing because I think that's what it means to be faithful in what God has. And our breakthrough is breakthrough for everyone too. It's not about us. It's just about us functioning together as a team. So hopefully that answers your question second time, Stan.
Todd, there have been a whole lot of questions that you've answered in some of the questions that the chaps have given, but there is another couple of questions that have come up about digital training. Maybe you want to just say something very quickly about what Chris Smith does, and people have been asking questions, how can they get, these are pastors around KZN asking how they can get training resources and so on.
Yes. So, I mean, you just got to subscribe. It's going to cost you $100 a year. No, just kidding. No, listen, we're doing our best. I mean, again, I'm not promoting our stuff. We just want to make it available to anyone and everyone. There's no cost, obviously, in anything. We've never charged. We refuse to charge because what we have to say is not about charging. It's about getting it out for people. So we've got, if you go to ncmi.net, we're doing our best to get everything up there, of old and new. My dad's stuff as well, we're trying to get up there. And we're just trying to make all resources available. I'm doing every week recording just on something. Series is on just what I feel God's saying. Some in the Corona thing, some outside it. We shouldn't be preaching coronavirus every week if we're serious about the future. We must move into faith again and also vision of where we're called to go. I'm not saying it's not real, guys, please. So that's what I'm trying to do and put it up there. I'm doing stuff for churches if they need. I think my encouragement to you guys who are listening, who are not on this team, you right now have access to this whole team globally who's in lockdown. And while they're busy with local churches themselves, you have access to them to being in your meeting on a Sunday, either to record something for you, not me, other guys, this whole team. And I think it's a great statement for your church that you are actually building with a translocal gift right now, even in a season like this, because you're serious about equipping the church for its future. So again, I'm not saying I'm the guy, please. I'm really busy, but I'm helping wherever we can help, we will. The stuff's up there, training, equipping, it's stuff for leadership, exclusive stuff, other stuff for local churches, other stuff we're just putting out there that if you would like to play it, you feel free and put it up in your local church. It's not NCMI focus, it's King and Kingdom. So everything's out there. If you just get on that website, Chris Smith, the guy who works for me, is just us. is the admin with the recording. He's putting stuff up every single day. If you get on Instagram and that, he puts like kind of highlights of it, and then you can go to the website and get the whole preach. Some of them are hours, some of them hour and a half. Some have said, well, that's too long. Hey, we're not asking you to watch the whole thing. It's a leadership training. If you're sitting at home right now watching Netflix, why not watch something else? And you can stop it and walk away. I won't be offended because I can't even see you. So the point is that we're putting as much as we can. If you guys have stuff too on Team, send it. We want to put it up. We just want to kind of be faithful in this and get our stuff, not our stuff, what God's saying to everyone and everyone. So there is a lot happening, and even team training. I'm going to go in next 2 days, next week, the week after next, and do 2 or 3 days of recording for team training. And then we're going to send it not to everyone, because I'd hate to just become another thing. It's quite exclusive for NCMI team training, and we'll send it in from names to regions. And I get them to watch it, then I can zoom in and we can chat around some of that and answer some questions. So we're trying to be creative in all this. I think Church Plotters training as well. We've got stuff up there. Guys are doing it. If you need stuff in your region, if we can do stuff, get a hold of Chris Smith. I think he's watching YouTube here. And so he's aware of some of these things. But get in touch with him. That's what we want to do. And if you've got some resources, let's put it together, man. Let's use what God's given us for our togetherness, to strengthen and equip. But we're doing everything we can. I'm trying to get my dad to do more stuff. I don't know. I'm just trying to put it all out there. And so we're doing what we can. It's all there. Get there. It's free. Help yourselves.
Brilliant. Ty and Nicole, our YouTube link is going to close in about a minute or two's time. Nicole, do you want a final word before Ty says goodbye?
No, I just want to say we love you guys so much, and we're praying for you. And we know God's with you, and you are the most precious people. Honestly, we love you all. You just are absolute delight. We know that God delights in you. So we love you, and we're praying.
That's great. Ty, before the YouTube guys go, do you want to just say one final word?
Look, thanks, guys, for this opportunity. Please hear my heart. I'm not an expert in any of this. I hope I haven't come across like we know exactly everything, but we certainly are committed to this thing, committed to you guys. We so appreciate partnership. It's probably one of the things that we value more than ever now. And I think that's the question. We're all going to enjoy what we have even more. When your people get back to meeting, I can't wait. Well, I've realized I've lived with the benefit and the blessing, but even more so now, just the partnership we have and the longing and desire to see you guys. We really appreciate everything you're doing for the King and his kingdom, honestly. And we're longing to get back to seeing you. If we can help in any way, please sing out. Please pray for us. We're praying for you. Lead strong in the season. Don't lose your way. Please stay the course. God's called you. It doesn't matter what people say. Stick to what God's called you to do. And we believe in you. Whether you got 100 people or 5 people or 1 million people, 1,000, honestly, it's not about numbers. It's about what you've been called to. Stay obedient. Do whatever he says. And again, we're with you. We're praying for you. Can't wait to see you. And thanks for this opportunity. I'd love to do it again sometime, But thanks for making it happen. Thanks for joining us and giving us